Hey friends, summer's coming. And just like we do some preparations for summer with maybe working out a little bit more, maybe eating a little cleaner to get our bodies ready for summer, I want to help you get your business ready for summer. So last week I held a virtual workshop called the Summer Ready Success Workshop, and I had such great feedback from this, and maybe you missed it. And so I wanted to let you know that I have the replay up for you to go and watch, go and learn how to have balance with your family, with your self-care, with your just busy summer schedule, have strategies to boost your productivity and maximize your summer success. So you want to go to martinewilliams.com/summer. And this is where you're going to be able to watch the virtual training. You have a guide that goes along with it to help you actually implement the strategies that you learn. So again, go to martinewilliams.com/summer and let's get you summer ready for success. Welcome to the Mompreneur Life Remix podcast, where you will learn how to remix your mompreneur life so that you can win at work without losing yourself in the process. Hi, my name is Martine Williams, and I am your host and CEO, your Chief Encouragement Officer. And this podcast is your one-stop shop to creating a burnout-proof life and business and elevating your clarity, confidence, and courage. Friends, it's time to say goodbye to being the yes girl and hello to creating healthy boundaries, healthy mindsets, and healthy habits. Your next breakthrough starts here. This is the Mompreneur Life Remix podcast. Let's do this. 3 topics or questions that come up quite a bit here on the podcast or from my coaching clients, or maybe you and I are talking in the DMs on social media. But the questions of like, there's so many distractions, Martine, like how do I navigate through the distractions? How do I create a productive day? Like, how do I supercharge my productivity so that I actually get things done at the end of the day? And then also, like, how do I find an accountability partner? Like, we talk about accountability and it sounds nice and you want to create one. Maybe you've tried having an accountability partner and it's just fell flat. So we're going to be talking about all 3 of those things today on the podcast with my turquoise talk guest. Her name is Tanya Alvarez, and starting at the young age of 25, she self-funded her first New York ad agency using credit cards and achieved 0 to 1 million in revenue in the first year. Along the way, she traveled to 42 countries, completing the Boston and NYC marathons and a half Ironman, all while battling a rare brittle bone condition. She has a classic underdog story, which you are going to love listening to, and she's on a mission to help you own your life, not just your business. Through Owners Up, Tanya aims to empower you to win at work without losing at home, utilizing facilitated accountability sprints to scale your business sanely and enable you to live your ideal life now. So we have a lot of similarities in the mission that we're on to help you in your work and at home. So let's dive in, friends. Well, hey, friends, I'm so excited about this week's Turquoise Talk guest, Tanya Alvarez. And we are going to be diving into 3 important topics when it comes to being a mompreneur, really entrepreneurship, which is goals, focus, and accountability. That word no one likes to talk about, but we all need. So thank you so much, Tanya, for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk about accountability.
Yes. So for those of us that are just kind of getting to know you, would you just like spend a couple of minutes and just share a little about you, your story, how you became an entrepreneur, and so we can just kind of get a backstory.
Yeah. So I started my first business at 25, grew it from like nothing, like credit card debt, all the way to over 1 million within the first year. Continued growing that as I was traveling over 40 countries at that point. And by the way, I didn't have a rich uncle or anybody. I actually came from a low income family. And so I was defying the odds and I didn't even know it at that time.
Right.
So eventually sold that company, started and like invested and sold other companies too. And now I'm in a mission to help other entrepreneurs have an easier journey, kind of growing their business and actually having a life. Because there's a lot of people who are successful, but don't have a life.
Amen to that.
Their wellness is not, it's unfortunately not good.
Yeah. I love that, because isn't that what really life is about, is helping others. Like once you have figured something out, then you kind of reach back and help other people, to like bring them along the journey. And so that they don't have to have some of the same mistakes maybe, or have some of the same discomforts that maybe we experienced. I always like to say that our past struggles become our present purposes. And you figured it out, at a very early age, what success looks like and how to get there. And I would be curious to know, like, what was your driving force at 25 to build this successful business? Like you said, you didn't have a lot of financial backing. So what was it inside you that just kept you moving forward when I'm sure there was a mess? Like I'm sure there was a mess before the success. So what was it that helped you to just kind of keep moving forward?
Chip on the shoulder
Yeah.
to prove something. It was ego driven.
Okay.
It's going to be straightforward. I think
Yeah.
most people in the beginning, you're in your 20s, you're thinking about impact, you're thinking about making a difference, but you're also trying to prove to yourself and others that you can do it. And since I was always kind of underestimated, I kind of wanted to see if I could pull it off.
Yeah. Yeah. And you did.
What did shift was when I had kids. It went from ego driven to I want to make a difference and I want to leave a legacy. Because at the end of the day, once you die, we all have to die at one point.
Yeah.
It's your kids who pass on your stories.
Right.
Your kids who live on.
Yeah. Yeah. And how old are your children now?
2 and 4.
2 and 4. Okay. All right. Littles. Mine are 16 and 19. So we're in very different seasons of parenthood, all hard. I tell everybody, like, it doesn't get any easier. It's just a different kind of hard.
I hope it gets easier now.
It's just a different kind of hard. And I say that like with a big smile on my face, because I remember working my business in the nooks and crannies of time, right? When my kids were napping and they needed more of my attention. It's like your priorities are very different than when they're older. And now they're like wanting to go and do their own thing. And I'm actually like wanting to pull them back in to spend more time with me. So, priorities shift and goals, may shift, or the plans may change depending on the seasons of life. And I think that's just a really important message for mompreneurs everywhere to hear, because you may see where I am, 17 years into entrepreneurship and my kids are 16 and 19 and trying to do some of the same things that I'm doing. And that might not be the right fit for the season that you're in. And I'm not saying you, I'm just saying anyone who's listening. It's just so easy with social media and all of the things to see what other people are doing and be inspired, but also kind of drop into that comparison trap. So have you...
I call it the compare and despair.
Yes, me too. Me too. So can you talk a little bit about that for someone who's listening and maybe that's where they're at? Like they're just in that place of comparison.
Oh, that is first, I'm really glad you pointed out the season you're in. Because right now, your kids aren't around. You are a mother, but it's different. It's like they're calling you for help and advice and decisions, right? Or like going to really important events and helping them plan their future. But when they're young, you don't have as much time. And I always remember this. Somebody told me you only have 18 summers with them. And they're not all the same, right?
Yeah.
And the same, what I mean by that in the time, because I think right around, you probably know better, right around maybe 13 years old, they probably don't want to spend summers with you. Right?
Yes, it happens.
Yes. So I always remember that. So in this season, I'm really being present and protecting my time and getting more done and saying no to a lot more things just so I can be really present with my kids.
Yeah. And I think that goes back to one of our topics, with goals and prioritizing those things that matter most right now in the season. And part of that process is having the courage to say no, right? To some really good things, but may not be the right things in this season. So when you talk about goal prioritization and navigating through like all the distractions, because there's tons of them out there, like what would be some helpful tips you can share with the listeners today about this?
So I don't know if anyone else is like me. I think you guys are all similar. We have all these ambitious goals, right? And then you're like, oh, I could totally do like 6 of these projects in 1 quarter. No, even if you have a great team, that's a lot to take on. So what I like to do is say 1 new goal, something I'm improving on, and something I'm optimizing, right?
Yeah.
So the difference of like the optimizing and improving is such a key difference. So there might be like maybe my whole automation I can improve on and see, okay, what can I do to get this to the next level, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it my LinkedIn? And then I
Mm-hmm.
take on one new project. So now if you think about this, if every quarter you only can take one project on,
Mm-hmm.
then you're going to be very, very selective of it, right? And
Right.
then you're going to
Yeah.
ruthlessly prioritize instead of saying we're a lot of like entrepreneurs that are small or have like a bunch of contractors, even small team. What they're like, oh, I have a lots of time. So I'm going to try
Mm-hmm.
to take it all on.
Yeah.
Well, let's be honest, doing a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this only moves the needle a little bit.
Right.
So when
Yeah.
you focus on it, then you start deciding, okay, well, what is, and then have a whole matrix on this, on analyzing what is the best ROI on the project you should take on as a new one. And it's
Right.
like comes down to like your effort, the impact. Because, for example, let's say I'm just going to make a random assumption, probably not true. Let's say you're really good at video editing, right? And this is your
Mm-hmm.
background and you knew how to do it. And I wanted to start doing videos. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, well, look at all these people on social media. They're making it look so easy. Oh, look at these AI tools, right? And then
Right.
I start going on this, but that's actually not the best ROI for my time. That's
Yeah.
not the best project right now. It
Yeah.
would be easier for you to do it if that was your background and your expertise. So I think
Correct.
that when you see all these things in social media, you really have to think about like where they are and where they're coming from. So, for example, coming after having kids, right? I
Mm-hmm.
saw all these people in the pictures bouncing back in social media, and I was like, then I had a friend who was a cyclist who cycled like long mileage during her pregnancy. And then after, and then I actually saw like what it really took, and she wasn't even posting on social media. I'm like, oh, I know what she did to make that happen.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
But social
Yeah.
media, you just say, oh, look, I just did this. And you do not know their background. You do not know how many years
Mm-hmm.
of like their body has been training, their mindset and everything. And I always remind somebody of that
Yeah.
because like when I'm doing a sport, and I try on something new, it's like I have a different mindset. I've been an athlete since I was 14 years old,
Right.
right? I'm going to take it on very differently than somebody who just started. And that's
Right.
an advantage at
Mm-hmm.
times, but it's also a disadvantage at other times.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the
Yeah.
disadvantage is you want to be curious. You want to be like that
Mm-hmm.
beginner mindset where you're learning and you're trying new things and you're not set like this is the only way to go about it.
Right. Yeah. 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 Those are such good points. I mean, I think we do compare our day one to someone's day 100. And it's just so
Yes.
easy to do on social, right? Or, the work that I do with my clients is really helping them to harness their strengths of their personality to build the business their way, without sacrificing at home. And so it's like you said, someone's gifts and strengths may be video editing, and it may just come super easy and natural for them to do that. Whereas for someone like me, that is not mine. I would definitely would much rather outsource that than I can do it, but it would take me a lot longer and it wouldn't be a good use of my time. Right. And so just knowing what your strengths are, knowing your goal, the one thing to focus on, because I do think there's just we want to boil the ocean. We want to put on the superwoman cape and do all the things.
Mhm.
But then we start sacrificing usually some really important things to meet that one goal, or we don't gain the traction because we're just splitting our interest in so many different ways. I mean, perfect example. I've taken social media. I've taken a break from social media for the months of April, and I'm still on a break now. And I've been way more productive and focused because I just took that one thing off my plate. And it wasn't even like I was showing up 7 times a day or something crazy like that, but it was just this mental space that I freed up for creativity. And my business has done really well because of that. But it's just the culture norms, right? The pressures we feel to be on and do all the things that we don't allow ourselves just to say, you know what, that's not right for me right now. It's okay to say no to that for right now.
Exactly. Yeah. I started posting 3 times on Instagram, the stories. And then I found myself like, I'm only going to post 3 times. And then I found myself like looking at other Instagram. And then it was
Mm,
like an hour and a half. I'm like, what the heck am I doing? This was not worth the posting those 3 damn
yeah.
stories.
Yeah, I know, right? You kind of get like sucked into all the things. We can go in with great intentions, right? I'm just going to post and then I'm going to leave. It never happens for most of us. I love this. So, speaking of focusing, like how do we supercharge our focus in a world where we are so distracted, by And not, I hate to say, like, they're all not negative distractions. There's just a lot of things pulling for our time, especially as mompreneurs. We have, the mom role, we have the wife role, we have the CEO role, we have, maybe you're the marketing person on your, in your business, you're the content creator, like you're all the things. And what are some things that you help your clients with helping to like multiply their focus? Hey friend, can I give you permission today? Like for real, your own permission slip. Permission to get clear, to cut out the noise, mostly the noise that is going on around in your own mind, in your own head. It's just swirling. And you're asking yourself questions like, why am I stuck? Why am I frustrated? Why am I not making progress on my goals? I want to invite you to a free clarity call with me where we're going to dive in and we're going to identify what are the 3 main issues that are keeping you stuck? Number 2, what are the mindsets around those issues that are actually keeping you from solving for those issues? It's not our skill sets, it's our mindsets that keep us stuck and hold us back. And then number 3, identifying what are your next steps? We all have a next step and we have 100% responsibility for those next steps. Your only next step right now is to go to the show notes and book your free clarity call so that we can work through this. I'm believing in you and I cannot wait to see you on our clarity call.
So back to toddler stage. Remember that emotional regulation stage where like you're teaching them how to emotionally regulate? And most adults don't know how to emotionally regulate.
Yes.
And I was listening to some Stanford director of like emotional regulation. I was like, oh, cool. Let's see what adults have to say about this, right?
Right.
And the biggest thing is awareness, right? So we get our kids to be aware of what their emotion is. And then we become adults and we're like, oh, yeah, that's it. But then we kind of like either repress it, that emotion, or move forward. So why I bring this up regarding focus. See, as an entrepreneur, we get so much done or we get so little done.
Yeah.
Either way, we're either exhausted, feeling not enough, or some days are just awesome, but we don't even know what it is. So if everyone just took a break at the end of the day in 3 minutes, and I call it the RAP, R-A-P.
Okay.
R is for actually reviewing. What did you get accomplished? And some days you're just like, yes, this was awesome. I got so much accomplished. Other days are like, you review and you're kind of like, wow, I really didn't need to do all of these things. I could have actually delegated or outsourced that. And it's the awareness that makes you change. It's kind of like the awareness of if you're sad, why are you sad? What's that common theme, right?
Yeah.
A is for assess. Rate your day 1 through 5. If it's a 5, awesome. Now say, what was the lessons you learned? Why was it a 5, right? And then the cool thing about that is you have so much data that you can start reverse engineering your days so you can have awesome 5 days all the time.
Right. Yeah.
And then until you actually are aware of what you're actually getting accomplished, what brings you joy, you're going to be doing the same thing over and over again if you're not aware to make that change.
True.
And P is for prioritize. Do your 3 goals that you want to achieve, the 3 projects. But here's the thing. Put a time constraint on it. Right? And let's be real, some people are like, oh, I could do deep work 3 to 5 hours. That's BS. That's hard.
Right.
Listen, you have no distractions. So what I like to do is say, and what are 3 projects I can get done in 2 hours and feel really accomplished?
Yeah.
And so that everything else is awesome, right? Everything else is like bonus, like cherry on top.
Yeah.
But I'm going to feel super accomplished. And that makes me realize like, what is the best use of my time? So making this makes me aware. I have data. I can either optimize and change it. But the biggest thing is being aware of your patterns. And only you can do that. So it takes 3 minutes.
Yeah. I love that you said only you can do that because this is the work that a lot of us don't want to slow down long enough to do. If we're highly ambitious, a high achiever, just high performance, then we're just go, go, go. And we're not taking the time to step back and evaluate and say, wow, I just did that. Like I just had a client that shared a win today and I'm like, okay, let's pause before you start moving forward to the next one. Like this was a big deal. Let's not just brush it off like, oh, well, I should have done that, but like you did this, you created this experience and this result for yourself. Like let's spend some time celebrating. And so I think we don't do that enough, but also like you said, just stopping and slowing down long enough to be aware of what's working, What's not working? What do I need to tweak a little bit before we just stay in motion with all the things? And then we look back at the end of the day. And I know so many moms that are like, I work so hard, but at the end of the day, I'm like, what did I actually accomplish? And there's nothing that leaves you feeling more guilty as a mom or an entrepreneur than that feeling like I worked so hard today, but what did I actually complete?
Yep. And I'm glad you brought up that scenario where you accomplish something and then you don't take the time to recognize and be aware of it and actually celebrate it. Because what ends up happening, that's going to lead you to burnout.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So it's kind of like I've been a runner most of my life, and some people are like, oh, I'm going to start running, and then they start running the first few days, and they're like, oh, I didn't lose weight. This feels like crap. I'm like, well, did you measure yourself? Did you get faster? What's the distance? I go, it's all about the progress from where you started to where you're heading. It's never the end goal. Because imagine doing it like signing up for a marathon and being like, oh, this is how much more training I have. That's miserable. You're going to stop. But if you started saying, hey, wow, cool. I used to be able to only run 3 miles. And now look at me, I'm doing 12 miles. And if we do that, not only we're going to be more excited, we're training our mind and our body to be like, oh, wow, I can do this. This is progress. And you get more excited about it. Just overall, your perspective changes.
Yeah. Yeah. Progress creates more progress. But if we're not measuring it because we're not slowing down long enough, like you said, to do the rap. Isn't that what was it rap?
Yes, the rap.
Yes. Yeah. To do the rap then, which I love because I love rap music. So I'm like, oh, I really love this. My brain is made up of 90% of lyrics, but I digress.
Wait, you just start rapping your head?
I do. I mean, like you could say something and I can hear a song in it. It's crazy. That's just an odd
Is that
skill.
your new social media? That should be your social media post.
Yeah.
You rapping.
I mean, I don't actually rap. No. I don't actually rap, but in my head I am. I am rapping. In my head I have lyrics, which is why this podcast is called Mompreneur Life Remixed, because I love remixes and I love music and we're all about remixing.
Should we be going?
Maybe one day we'll do that. I did set a goal this year to learn how to be a DJ and remix my own music, but I have not started on that. So there's some accountability for all of y'all are listening.
I love that.
Yeah, just something fun, right? I think as mompreneurs, we need more fun. And that was really why I set that goal is we get so serious and so focused on our businesses, which we need to be, but we also need to create spaces to play and places, spaces to have fun. And I don't know if you've experienced burnout yourself, but I do think that's where a lot of it comes from. It's not from doing too much, it's doing too little of what actually lights us up and what brings us joy. So have you experienced burnout before? If you have, kind of how did it show up for you and what did you do to kind of work out of it?
So there was a point where I was like working all the time. Like people are like, oh, wow, you got to 1 million in a year. That's great. Yeah, I was working pretty hard.
Yeah, right.
There's many times where it's like, if you continue on that path, like it's okay to do sprints, but if you continue on that path, you're going to burn out.
Yeah.
There's you have to have that balance. It's kind of, I just wrote about this on a LinkedIn post. It was like a former CEO who did like a commencement speech. And then he says about the rubber balls and the glass ball.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Yep.
And most people mistake work as a glass ball. And so here I was thinking, this is all, you know what I mean? This is everything.
Yep.
And I assumed it was a glass ball. And I let everything kind of fade away or not as prioritized. And I thought those were the rubber balls. Like, oh, don't worry, my health, everything else. I'm going to run, maintain it. But when that glass ball, which is the other ones fall, it's pretty bad.
Yeah.
And even if you get if your work drops, it won't be as high if you drop all those other balls.
Yeah.
Your family, your relationship. I've seen so many people who've sold their companies super successful and miserable. Because they're like, is this it?
Right. Yeah. Well, they look back. Right. They look back and there's no one to share it with because they've sacrificed those relationships in pursuit of success. I've seen that over and over and over again, which is part of the reason why I'm on the mission that I am on with mompreneurs, because it just doesn't have to be that way. No. It really doesn't have to be that way. You can be both and. You can be a great mom, a great wife, and a successful entrepreneur without sacrificing yourself in the process to get there.
And the key thing to do that is not do it alone.
True.
I think that's a first thing. If you're going to juggle with others. Share your values, have that community, and just have it. Because back in the day, people had villages, right? It was easier to do it. And they didn't have all that pressure to like succeed in the way we're trying to succeed today. We're changing that, which is awesome, but we're also doing it all alone. Like right
Yeah.
now, I moved to Minnesota. I don't have family around to help me,
Right.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm fortunate enough to pay for daycare, to pay for resources, but there's
Mm-hmm.
another level of like having that support, right? Of
Mm-hmm.
family there.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk about that just for a couple of minutes with, harnessing accountability groups. I do hear a lot of women that will say, I really need an accountability partner. I'd like to start an accountability group. And I tried it for, a couple sessions and it just didn't work out. Like, what would you say is the secret sauce to either having the right accountability partner or creating these accountability groups to have that support and have the accountability to meet your goals?
These are great questions. So when you're doing an accountability group, first you got to pick somebody they could be your friend, but somebody who's really aligned to what you're up to.
Yeah.
And then the second thing is you have to write before everything goes, like your momentum's not there, write in a document why this is important to you and why it's important to them, what you end up doing as a default to get out of things, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are your usual excuses? How do you show up when you're kind of off your game?
Yeah.
And giving that person permission to actually like hold you accountable to that. And then you guys
Mm.
both sign it.
I love
That's
that.
super important. The third thing is consequences only work the first time. The second time you actually, and this is when I think you either have to have somebody who's really good with that or some sort of coach or facilitator there, because you have to actually go in and say, like, let's say all of a sudden, I don't know, you didn't want to rap in front of an audience, right? And you said that's what you wanted to do. And I was like, oh, you wanted to do this. This is super important. It's your skill. And I'm like, here's your consequence. You agreed on this consequence. Now, the second time, you're not motivated. You're kind of out of it. So I can hold your consequence again, but it's not going to move you. You're not going to be excited. Instead, I need to figure out what it is. What's the belief you're holding on to? What's holding you
Mm-hmm.
back? Is it perfectionism? Is it a belief shift that we have to do, right? Or is it something that you don't have enough knowledge, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is it a skill you're missing? And then
Yeah.
from there, we dig in and we're like, all right, are you comfortable? Are you ready to go? And then move forward. And sometimes it's like, maybe it was like you wanted to do rap for 30 minutes and really we need to just get you to just do it for 30 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
then break it down smaller and smaller so you get that momentum. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of things. It's not as easy as, hey, you, me, let's do accountability, right?
Right.
Because
Yeah.
if it was that easy, we would already have done it ourselves.
That's true. Yeah. So it's like like a harmony or a balance between the accountability and a coach, right? Like learning that skill set of asking the right questions of the partner that you're in with, And so I think there's so many resources out there. You don't have to have a certification to be a coach, but just like what are those three questions that you would want to ask them on the second time? Because you're right. Like if their headspace is not there's something that's blocking. There's a belief blocker. There's something that's blocking them from moving forward. And so we just got to kind of dig in there a little bit. And some people, I think, like you said, matching like where you're wanting to go as far as accountability. Some people just aren't willing to invest that time, or maybe it's uncomfortable for them to ask you those questions. And those are the kind of things that you want to know ahead of time, right? When you're kind of picking the partner, like I want someone that's going to shoot it to me straight. Like just call me out on all my stuff. Like put up a mirror and just like, here you go. This is what I'm hearing. I love you, but here's what I'm hearing. And here's what you said you wanted to do. So where's the disconnect?
And that's a hard part. A lot of
Yeah.
people have a hard time giving it straight. So
Yeah.
before you connect with anybody, you need to figure out, is this person really going to be telling me like what it is?
Mm-hmm.
And then can I take that feedback and I have no filter on that person? Right.
Right.
Sometimes
Yeah.
like you have a relationship with somebody, like could be your husband, your partner. When they say it, it triggers you. But when another friend says like something, you're just like, oh, okay, I can take your advice. So
Yeah.
make sure you don't have like I don't know what you call it, a filter or trigger on somebody.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like when they say we have selective hearing, like just be selective, right? In picking the right partner. And I think be willing to maybe have to go through two or three. I think that's the other problem is, well, I tried that and it didn't work. Well, you only tried it with one person, right? Like maybe it just wasn't the right person, the right timing for that person, or maybe, like you said, it wasn't the right person for you because you weren't able to really receive the feedback that they were wanting to give you. So would you say it's better for like one-on-one accountability, or do you like people in groups?
I like groups, and my favorite is about 3 to 5.
Okay.
Because the momentum's still there and you can try out things. And if it ends up being just one other person that ends up kind of moving forward, at least you have somebody, right?
Yeah.
So you get to try out people all the time. And then if the group is more of like, everyone's kind of like whining and just like there, you just got to move forward, cut it. Don't say
Yeah,
anything,
right.
just cut it.
Yeah.
It's like that's sunk cost, like out of there, done.
Yeah.
Because that can drain you. Like that's why I'm
Mhm.
very selective on the groups I'm in, because I'm like, wait, I do this for a living. And no, I don't want to be in this energy.
Yeah. Yeah. I
So
love
that's
that's a
another thing that most mompreneurs or anybody,
mhm.
like make sure you tap into your energy. When you're doing the wrap, like figure out what task actually excited me, what
Mhm.
drained me, what people, resources, things like
Mhm.
energy is something that people always talk about time management. No, it's energy management.
Right. Yeah. For sure. For sure. What are you putting enough in, right? Pouring enough in of the energy that fuels you, or are you just like draining? You can have the largest fuel tank. One of the things in the assessment that I use, it shows basically like how large your capacity is for energy. And we all have different size. I like to call it fuel tanks. And I'm like, you can have the largest fuel tank in the world. You could have like an 18-wheeler fuel tank, but if it's draining consistently and you're not going back to the pump to fill it up, it doesn't matter how big your capacity for energy is if you're not constantly going back to the pump and refueling. So I think that's super
So true.
important. Yeah. Yeah. So as we kind of wrap up, I'd love to hear, I know you said you kind of went from being a workaholic. So how did you make that transition? I'm sure it was difficult. It had challenges because you had one mindset to be this way and now you wanted to create the change. So can you share just a little bit about that?
I think the biggest thing is realizing your time. Like I live by my calendar. If it's not on my calendar, it doesn't
Mhm.
exist.
Yeah, me too.
And I think before I kind of allowed anything on my calendar, I wasn't documenting it, right? And I
Hmm.
thought time was like, I have so much time because I wasn't really thinking about everything else I had, right? I was
Hmm.
like, oh, it doesn't matter. I get all my work done. But getting all your work done isn't the same as getting quality work done. And
Yeah,
it was
so
really
true.
hard for me to understand that until I saw my calendar. And I
Hmm.
got really realistic. I'm like, okay, well, I want to work out. Okay, this is a non-negotiable. So I
Hmm.
have to treat this like the most important meeting, because the most important meeting should be your wellness. Because
Hmm.
how you like, if you take care of yourself, then you show up as a leader differently.
Yep.
But like you said, when your tank's empty,
Hmm.
you're going to treat everybody else like that too. You're going to have less patience. You're just going to be snappy, all of it. So that
Yeah.
should be your most important. So what I like to think about is like what's self-care for me, and self-care is totally different for everybody. And then blocking that time to make sure it happens. So now what it is, it's like my mornings are like kids, right? And
Yeah.
then it's like a workout, and then I start the day. And then there's journaling, and then taking the time for me, reading a book and things that energize me. And I
Yeah.
protect it. There's no moving around it. And I
Yeah.
think that's then when I start looking at the calendar, I'm like, wow, I
Hmm.
really only have about 4 hours. All right.
Right.
How am I going to do this differently? And that is the biggest difference. And I think I've seen a lot of female entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs overall where they do not want to delegate. They're like, I'm the only one who can do this.
Oh yeah. Yep.
And when you
Yep.
start looking at it, if you only have 4 hours to do something, then you'll start
Hmm.
realizing, shoot, I need to delegate. This is not worth my time. Can I
Yep.
do it? Yeah. But
Yep.
does it bring me joy? No.
Yeah. 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 We had a speaker one time that talked about like the 3 Ds, like you either have to do it, delegate it, or delete it. Like that's the only way to get more time on your calendar is if it's something you can do it. If not, delegate it or just take it off your plate. And that's really a message for everyone that's listening. Like, what does your plate even look like right now? You could have a plate full of all the healthy vegetables and fruits, but it still could be overflowing. It could still be super heavy for you to be holding up right now. So how can you have good portion control, right? With the things that fuel you, that are helping you grow your business, that are helping you with your self-care, and have just portion control, right? Even too much of a good thing is still too much. too
Mhm.
much of volunteering at the school and building your business and doing the date nights, like all of that, it can be so heavy when you're trying to do it all at one time.
And then also remember the season you're in, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Well, this was so great. I know that people are going to take a lot away with just the points you shared on, prioritizing and the focus and especially the accountability, because I get that question a lot. So, how can people connect with you if they want to learn more about you and the work that you do?
Yeah, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. It is Alvarez T and or Tanya Alvarez, and you can find me on Instagram. And if you want, DM me and I could send you, if you're going through that whole accountability,
Mm-hmm.
I can send you the 3 questions that you could start asking people when they're stuck and they didn't follow through.
I love that. Okay. That's awesome. Well, we'll put the links to everything in our show notes. And thank you so much again for taking the time to come on the show. This was awesome.
Thank you.
Well, that's a wrap, friends. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. I really hope it met you right where you are and gave you some encouragement for your day. Could you do me the biggest favor and leave me a rating and review? Seriously, it's the best way for you to support the show. And while you're there, be sure to follow the show so you never miss an episode. Thanks again. And until next time, I am believing in you always.